Okay. So now the time has come to do what I've promised I was going to do. I have a few, actually, I've had quite a few video ideas in the last few days that I've wanted to tackle. And the one that I've mentioned the most in previous videos was Scott Walker. So we're going to do Scott Walker right now. And let's start with the way that I got introduced to Scott Walker. What I picked up, and I don't know why I picked it up, was the Scott Walker in five Easy Pieces box set. This is going to be a 3-part video, FYI. This pretty much is going to cover everything up until the drift. Really everything. And I made a few notes to be factual here. Scott Walker was born in Hamilton, Ohio, 1943, moved to LA in 59. He started, or he got with the Walker brothers, who were not actually brothers, in 1964. Now, a lot of the information that I have on Scott Walker comes from a movie, a DVD that I went and saw it in the theater, but I had it on DVD because there's a movie I really like, I'll buy it and kind of watch it frequently. I'll rewatch things more than I'll watch new things. So I had there's a movie called 30th Century Man. I think that's what it's called. And my buddy Nick from Petrov the Hero, he still has my copy of it. So this is just a little reminder to Nick that if he ever gets a chance to give me my DVD back. Anyways, so some of the information I have is from there. From what I understand is that Scott had some sort of, he's born Scott Engel, and he had some aspirations to do some early rock and roll singing, and his mom kind of helped him with this sort of career. And they had a little fan club going for him, and there's some recordings that did get made and they got released uh, later, and he totally disavows them. He disavows a lot of things in his catalog. So I've never actually heard those, but I wouldn't necessarily disavow them because um, I think that a lot of the stuff that got disavowed in the 70s is some of my favorite Scott Walker material. But that's going to be for part 2, because like I said, it's a 3-part video. This is part 1, which we're going to really tackle the Walker brothers to kind of into the first 5 solo albums. So he got to LA. He's playing the Sunset Strip. This is really, I guess, like the Birds and stuff were there. This is in a lot of ways kind of the heyday. Buffalo Springfield was there. This is when like Neil Young was able to go and like run into, now I'll get this wrong, so hopefully someone will correct me in the comments, because I actually do appreciate when people do that. Like Neil Young ran into, I want to say, Stephen Stills on the street, and they formed Buffalo Springfield. So this is really the heyday of the Sunset Strip. You're talking like 64. And then for whatever reasons, the Walker brothers get taken out to England, and they start doing their proper recordings there. Now I do have Walker Brothers albums on CD. Actually, some of the Walker Brothers stuff I have is on here. I don't know where those Walker Brothers CDs are. Some of it's also on 5 Easy Pieces. They had hits in England, and they were a big band. And the song I knew was a big hit was "The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore." But the other one was "Make It Easy on Yourself," which I guess that makes sense that it was a big hit. England had a lot of interesting bands that got to have hits at that time period. The Walker Brothers, The Move. The Move is really great. Kind of all their incarnations, and they got to have like hit records in England. Like England was like a very like discerning music tastemaker kind of thing, and or it was filled with tastemakers. And one thing that I want to mention in this video that relates to another video I did the video on Van Morrison, and I talked about how Van had this thing when he was a child where he did this sort of mythic poetic transference onto his day-to-day world. He sort of projected this mythical Ireland of yore onto, right? So he could kind of almost, it was either superimposed or he could look past the existing banal surroundings as if it was a facade and see this sort of true essence of Ireland. Okay, so Scott Walker had a similar kind of transference, and it's talked about in 30th Century Man, where he was watching, well, he's very avant-garde, and I'm going to talk about the avant-garde again in these videos, because Scott's career is always veering towards the avant-garde, right? And the thing I want to say about the transference thing before I go on is he was watching movies, Bergman films. He made a song about the seventh sign, or what, dude, now I can't believe I'm getting it wrong, but it's the really famous Bergman movie about playing chess with death. It's a great movie. But I'm going to get all my stuff wrong. That's why I actually have to have things here. So he was watching a lot of British TV shows. And so he's older than Van Morrison. And he's kind of doing this thing where he's watching these black and white they're called kitchen sink dramas or comedies about these sort of eccentric British characters, right? So now he's in Ohio and then LA, and he's visualizing this not really mythical England, but it's a sort of a what's the word? Let's say idealistic. It's not really idealistic, but it's sort of an imaginary England, right? And then what was really fascinating is that when the Walker brothers go over to England, he actually gets to encounter that England of his imagination that he was hoping to encounter. He actually, in the 30th Century Man documentary, he says he got to see those types of people running around. And that was really exciting for him, right? So it's kind of a continuation of that muse imposition or transposing thing that the Van Morrison was kind of doing it with in his youth, and then his artistic muse sort of dictated that artistically and musically he had to reconstruct this mythic Ireland. Scott, similarly, he's got this idea of England. He goes to England and he finds the England he was looking for, right? So what is like the Nick Cave lyric, like fame finally found him in Dig Lazarus Dig, right? So fame got him, and then I guess it caused trouble, and the Walker brothers got to do a few albums, which I have a CD that's got, I think, 2 of them on it, and it's great. It's like those types of albums that 60s bands, or that bands in the 60s got to do, where there's a lot of covers, but like Summertime and stuff, and I think they did not Spooky, but there's that other song. It's like another sort of 60s classic. So it's, let's say, kind of like Spooky. It's not Spooky though. It's Sunny. Dude, they did Sunny, right? So they got to do that. It's a lot of covers. And then for whatever reasons, and this is where Scott kind of starts becoming a moody individual. The Walker brothers sort of break up, and he starts doing solo albums. I have the solo albums represented here on this collection. I have a lot of Scott Walker, right? I got Tilt. This is going to be really important. I got Drift. I'll have to listen to this again before I talk about it. This, the late Reformed Walker Brothers. This, right? So I have a lot of Scott Walker. He's really important to me. But this encapsulates Scott 1, which is just eponymous Scott, Scott 2, Scott 3, Scott 4, until the band comes in. All are really essential albums. All, I would say, Scott in his moody later years, who has he's has a sort of an attitude that in some ways we could characterize as being dismissive, but then it's also an attitude that like maybe Dylan has, where it's like, I've been there, I've done that, I'm moving on. He doesn't revisit past works. Nevertheless, these albums, they're in a way so iconic that I don't think he doesn't re-listen to them, but I think he always had a certain reverence for them, right? I think, and you know, I try to keep the video short, so I'm not gonna do deep analysis on these things. I don't really have a favorite of these. I think in some respects my favorite is Scott 3, but the notable things here are the fact that he starts to incorporate songs by Jacques Brel into his albums, right? And he discovered Jacques Brel because a woman that he met at a restaurant or something, she was a waitress, and he went home with her, and she was playing Jacques Brel recordings, and he thought these songs were so captivating that he got, I think it was Andrew Luke Oldham, to get him the whatever those acetates are for artists to listen to in case they want to cover them. He got them, I think, from Andrew Luke Oldham, and he went and he started to mix Jacques Brel tunes into these albums that were composed of some AOR contemporary sort of music, which let's just classify as kind of like Burt Bacharach, Hal David sort of stuff, and then also his own compositions. And I think that mix of original compositions, which are kind of capturing his sort of leaving the fame of the Walker Brothers, with the sort of moodiness that prompted his leaving, his sort of artistic aspirations, which would say, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to write, what I'm going to sing is not necessarily going to be popular in the way the Walker Brothers stuff was. And then also the Jacques Brel stuff with the sort of padding that the AOR stuff gives it, it makes each album really a cohesive, enjoyable listen all the way through. And so, and my vision is getting worse, and I dimmed the lights in here because I like having like a dimmer light. So now my vision is not that good. You look at Scott 2, the first track on there is Jackie. That's a Jacques Brel song, and it's like the print on there is even smaller. It's like a hilarious song too, because Jacques Brel, this is a really European sensibility that we're getting into. So there's like this kind of European nihilism that baby boomer audience, for the most part, would not really get or enjoy. It's sort of a gallows humor, right? That's Scott 1. What's on Scott 3? Because Scott 3, I know, has It's Raining Today on it. It's got Copenhagen, We Came Through, Butterfly, 30th Century Man, Winter Night, Funeral Tango. That's a Jacques Brel song. And If You Go Away, that's a Jacques Brel song. And some of the songs that were on these albums, I wonder if Montague Terrace in Blue is on one of these, or if that was kind of at the end of the Walker Brothers. But Amsterdam. There's a song on here, I can't remember if it's Copenhagen or it's Amsterdam, where he himself is trying to mimic Jacques Brel's sort of songwriting. Such a Small Love. That's actually one of the covers. That's on the first one. So yeah, these, and then Wally Stott was a person who was like a really renowned arranger. She did the arrangements, the string arrangements a lot on these albums, and they were just really iconic. And the thing is that even though they are iconic ultimately because they make the Scott Walker sort of brand that we know now, how it's portrayed in the movie is that Scott does 1 successful, 2 successful, 3 very successful, and then 4 it's not successful, right? So when he's doing Till the Band Comes In, he's sort of in his own mind drifting astray artistically. But this is where Scott, in his sort of encyclopedic expansion of his musical vocabulary, starts to incorporate country music. It's Till the Band Comes In. He would probably disavow that album, but the country stuff is ultimately, spoiler, my favorite Scott Walker material. Okay, so Till the Band Comes In is, you can kind of view it as being like an artist that had a decent commercial success, a lot of critical success. They'd kind of fallen off. Country's starting to be a thing, so he starts doing country and incorporating that sound into some of his songs and doing those songs, right? And I think he viewed that as a compromise, as an artistic compromise. Now, I've talked about the avant-garde before, and Zappa's idea of the avant-garde, or Zappa as an avatar of the avant-garde, is somebody who's like, I'm going to occasionally throw inappropriate and offensive material, words, lyrics, sounds, whatever, into songs to sort of disrupt the listening experience. And it seems it's like, has like what they would say in a broad sense, it's a perverse sensibility, because you kind of get the feeling that somebody's enjoying something and you're throwing something in that kind of disrupts that enjoyment. Scott's avant-garde sensibility, in some respects, let's say, is like that, but he's dictated in a much more somber way, or the dictation of his actions artistically is much more somber, because he wants to be true to what he's doing, his muse, and what he's doing artistically, and he wants to not compromise, and he wants to eschew compromising. I don't think that was really an issue with Zappa, we could take avant-garde or conceptual artists or postmodern artists, or however you want to say it, one by one, and talk about why they're doing the things that they're doing and what reasons might be behind that, right? But that seems to be Scott's thing, is he's serious, and he wants to be taken seriously, and he doesn't want to feel like he's compromising anything with what he's doing artistically and musically, right? So I'm probably going to do other videos between this and the other 3, or the other 2. It's going to be 3 altogether. But for now, listen to the Walker Brothers. Listen to the early Scott, those first 5 albums. And listen to the Happy Casualties. Like, subscribe, please. And I'll talk to you later.